Distinguished moderator of the session, Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi, and my own respected panelists, dear participants, colleagues, and partners. I'm truly overwhelmed with your presence this evening, and especially with so much overwhelming response. And I'm told today 750 participants have registered, not only from India but from all over the world. I therefore would like to extend my warm welcome to each one of them, and it is on a subject that is so concerning to each one of us. Today, all of you are aware the higher education and our own goal of United Nations is quality education. And therefore, we also choose what can be a contemporary theme and relevant theme for all us to debate, discuss, and also take few takeaways out of these sessions. We therefore took the challenges and opportunities for delivering quality higher education in India now and post COVID-19. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi, the management thinker, scholar, a visionary from the higher education world, and who have not only agreed to anchor this session, but also to support this initiative and to make this happen. So my sincere thanks to Dr. Chaturvedi. I would like to now formally welcome each distinguished panel of speakers. Actually, they don't need any introduction. They are the domain of management education or even all over the educations, beginning from Dr. Ratish Chattopadhyay, Vice Chancellor, Vishwabhumi University and Director, IFIM Business School, Bangalore. Equally renowned, Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, Vice Chancellor, SRM University, Chennai. And Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, Dean, SP Jain Institute of Management Research. We are very equally gratified with the presence of industry veteran, my own dear friend, Mr. Harshvardhan Soin, Global Chief People and Marketing Head Tech Mahindra. He will be able to bring today the industry perspective. Their presence here this evening only bear testimony that they do not only commit to this subject, but also shows that how much they also would like to benefit the collective wisdom and experience today all of us will gather. Therefore, I would like to sincerely thank each one of them. I'm sure most people present today are aware about the UN Global Compact. The Global Compact Network India is the local arm of United Nations Global Compact. It is the only UN agency in India that works as custodian of all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We are a membership-driven network that works in the areas of advocacy, research, capacity building, and programmatic intervention, projects around SDGs, and 10 global UNGC principles. In addition to that, the Global Compact work in tandem, in hand to hand, with the Government of India, state government, corporate sector, civil society, or medium and small enterprises, academia. So we are very well poised to take this forward, especially on the occasion that we are all struggling to fight the COVID-19. COVID-19, all of you know, has disrupted our ways of living and working. And we believe in UN, SDG, and 10 principles are the only ways to respond and restore, rebuild, and resume both our personal and professional lives. Higher education is the very basis of driving sustainable and responsible professional business practices. And today the webinar that we have presented to you will focus on post-COVID-19 challenges. And we would also like to assure you that this collective thought leadership with 750 registrations and the five eminent scholars and thinkers will bring some agenda which will be useful going forward. We stand united to support the present and future of quality higher education as driver of sustainable changes across the facet of our lives. I am sure the discussions and interaction during the webinar today will be both engaging and enlightening. So my best wishes to all of you, and may I now have the pleasure and privilege to invite Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi, the Sutradhar of today's program, and who has not only brought so many Sutradhar around us, but also able to curate the conversation going forward. So over to Dr. Chaturvedi.
Thank you, Mr. Kamal Singh. And myself and all my panelists are grateful to United Nations Global Compact Network of India for arranging this webinar and giving us this opportunity. I welcome my fellow panelists and all the members of today's great audience. We are overwhelmed by your massive presence. It shows your interest about the future of higher education in India. And you know that the topic of today's webinar is challenges and opportunities for delivering quality higher education in India now and post COVID-19. So I will initially express some of my thoughts for a few minutes. Then I will invite my fellow panelists for giving their introductory remarks. My fellow panelists, they are eminent persons from Indian higher education. They have headed very eminent institutions. Still, they are running as the top leader of those institutions, universities, and they have their own contribution to the thought leadership in higher education. Friends, SDG goals, 17 goals were set by United Nations to be achieved by 2030. This set of SDG goals were decided in 2015. So we are left with only 10 years now. And SDG goal 4, about which today's webinar's topic is related, it says that quality education ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So let me just express my thoughts very briefly. Before COVID-19, what was the scenario of Indian higher education and its quality? The numbers are huge. We have more than 50,000 colleges, 1,000 plus universities, around 40 million students, around 1.5 million teachers. But the quality is skewed. Only top institutions in all disciplines are providing quality education. And here I mean quality which is expressed by the accreditation and the ranking done by reputed ranking agencies. COVID has affected that all this huge system, which is almost equal to the system, higher education system of China, it has become standstill, it is disrupted, and everybody is sitting at home. So what kind of challenges and opportunities are being thrown by COVID-19? I would like to start with the shift, rapid and massive shift towards online education. So opportunity has been achieved by academia that there is rapid learning of faculty. Now everybody is forced. Everybody is forced for last 30 years. Nobody was serious about online learning, and only few good institutions were giving some attention to online learning. But now no option left, so everybody is forced to learn the tools and techniques of online learning. What are the challenges? The biggest challenges will be that online learning in our context is aligned with elites classes, and masses will face a lot of difficulties to get access of online education because of our context, India's own context. Our poor communities, poor families students from poor classes, they do not have the access of smartphones and also internet. Then there will be another challenge that the rapid spread of online learning will invite a big challenge to Indian higher education institutions. That will arrival of MOOCs like Coursera, edX, or Udemy. They will be offering their courses and degree courses or certificate courses, and they will have the big opportunity in India. So there will be a tough challenge for Indian institutions. In this time, we are all preparing for new academic session. So COVID has created a situation that it has become very difficult for to start the new academic session. The Ministry of HRD, all institutions, they were pondering over this issue, and ultimately a calendar has been issued by University Grant Commission as well as by the AICT. Now opening of the campuses will be very difficult, and we will have to face the challenges of social distancing, air conditioning, and running the mass sports gym facilities for students. Most serious effect of COVID will be that a unique feature of higher education, that young people, they like to socialize in campuses, and extracurricular activities are big source of learning. Those things will be difficult and rare. Future of quota model will be challenged by the post-COVID situation. There will be discontinuity in international mobility of students. Less number of students will go abroad. Most of them will prefer to study in their own native countries. Lastly, there is a very big danger because of the economic crisis, because of the losses of jobs. More than 15 crore people have lost their jobs, mostly from the poor classes and also lower middle classes. And it will lead to decline in new admissions, and there will be a lurking financial crisis to higher education institutions. Small institutions, of course, in our system, there are many colleges which are financially in tight position. So these are some of my thoughts. I do not say that these are my own personal thoughts, but I think we are starting with these thoughts, this discussion. And let me invite first Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, who is Vice Chancellor of SRM University, Chennai.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to audience and all the distinguished panelists. Dr. Chaturvedi, Mr. Kamal Singh ji, thank you so much for inviting BIMTECH and UN GCNI for arranging this particular important webinar. I'm pleased to be part of that. The topic is very apt, very important for all of us, talking about the challenges and opportunities for quality higher education in the times of COVID and possibly post-COVID. So we'll talk about COVID and also the quality higher education in general sense. I'll try to cover those two aspects to begin with. First thing, the COVID, because it has shook us, it has woken us up. We are probably sleeping. Education sector in India is a giant because we are growing fast. Our GER has gone up tremendously in last 10 years and is going to go up tremendously in next 10 years. The volume and other things probably can be seen in form of the financial value or in terms of the growth which we are seeing. In last 2 years alone, probably 200 universities have come. So we can understand the growth is there. But COVID has given certain different impetus. Now, today we are deliberating upon what we call the now means in the current times of COVID, we can call it CC. There is a terminology which is becoming very popular, what is going to be before COVID and after COVID. So there is an AC and BC also. I would be very happy with another term called DC, which will be after the death of COVID. I don't know when is it going to happen, but we'd want it to be as early as possible so that we can be on track. And not only we, education sector would ideally be dependent upon many other sectors because the people come from those backgrounds. The employments are offered in those backgrounds or those institutions or organizations. And therefore, we would want the COVID to become DD rather than CD or CC kind of a thing. But we can't help it. We don't know how long it is going to last. And therefore, let's think about certain things which we can do, whether it is there or not, to to project what will be there in the future would be a bit difficult. But what we can do currently, which will lay the foundation for future, I think would be a right approach from my point of view, and therefore I'll probably share something to you on that. So the second point which we have chosen is quality. Obviously, in Indian context, we have talked about it for last 20 years at least very aggressively. And we know that we are having a challenge. It is culminating into ranks and ratings and other things also. So we know that we are challenged. And every top leader of the country, especially during our convocations and some meetings of that nature, very happily point to us that we are not delivering what we are supposed to. So quality has to be discussed irrespective of the COVID is what I would say. So quality is certainly not a destination. Is it related to COVID? I would say not. Is it going to be affected by the COVID? It should not be. Quality is a journey. Quality cannot remain standstill. And quality for me possibly would be to prove something that I have attained something and then to further improve it and to say that I'm going to raise the bar. That will be my quality, and I should be able to measure it and treasure it. Treasure it, not to confine it to my cupboards. Treasure it means it's always close to my heart. I'm able to push the boundaries of it. And that's why I'm saying the measure it and treasure it should always be there. Quality is, by the way, difficult to measure because it's not quantity. But we are finding ways and means, and national agencies are also found ways and means to quantify it in certain ways. And that's what we are seeing in NBA, NAC, and NIRF also, that they're trying to use certain techniques. So ultimately, if I had to make a last statement on the quality, I would possibly say that quality is a desire. Quality is achieved by what we call ability and also by the agility. Agility is what was missing in the Indian education setup. We were having a lot of complacency. We were enjoying. We were getting students. We never expanded. I'm sorry to say, though we don't have people on the panel from IITs others, but their expansion in first 40 years was hardly anything which the country needed. So we need agility, we need ability, and therefore the quality has to be something come with the quantity also. It cannot be that I guide 30 students, make them the brightest, and claim that I am the best. No, it will not serve the country. It will not serve the purpose. So that's the aspect of COVID and the quality. But I come to what might happen or what is currently happening right now, happening in our domain. Everyone has gone crazy about online. Everything which we are thinking is going online. Almost every day for last 20 days, we are having webinars where agencies are presenting to us how to teach well using online, how to examine well, how to do webinars, how to do classrooms, how to do LMSs, how to prepare yourself well and present in pedagogies of that. And therefore, online is something at the fore, and it's going to play an important role for our survival as long as the COVID is there. But it's very likely that we will sustain the online things later also, because technology helps scale up things, and we need scaling up in India. As I was saying, GR has to go up, and we need scaling up, and especially scaling up the quality things. Good institutions, good teachers should scale up their effort so that rather than going to 60 people or 100 people or 200 people in their institution, it goes to thousands of people, and generally with a lower cost. So therefore, online is something which is technologically driven, and therefore online has to become our mainstay. Some people are fundamentally against that. There is nothing which is perfect, whether it's offline or online, contact or non-contact, but online has to stay, whether it is 30% of your teaching or 50% or 70%, doesn't matter. We in SRM have already decided, irrespective of, between our discussion, irrespective of decision in the Senate, they have said that 20% of our teaching henceforth will always be online, whether my student is in my campus, living in the hostel next door or outside the class, doesn't matter, but I'll try to teach him online. So that is the impact of the online. And last word about the online, I would say, I've been a member of the Distance Education Council, and therefore I like to make this statement that online is unfortunately starting with a slight position of disadvantage. The distance education was the predecessor or the cousin or the elder cousin of what you call online, in my opinion. And somehow it did not earn a very good name. I'm not saying that it did did not attempt, it did not make the best effort, but it did not earn a good name, and therefore people looked at distance education or non-contact education with a stigma, with something to look down upon. And even now, many of us, we know that when we see a degree from distance education, we try to question it. And therefore, there was a difficulty with the online, that its earlier family member did not have the reputation. The second one which came in the second generation, probably we started doing a lot of virtual thing. And in the virtual, once again, that connotation of real thing was missing. And therefore people didn't like, oh, virtual classroom, what is virtual classroom? Today we are accepting it, but 5-10 years back we were not accepting it. Those smart rooms, smart classrooms, everything was there, technology was there. We did not. And therefore the two predecessors of online probably didn't do well, and now the online has come and online is being pursued, followed. But let's understand that online is not just online can remain with everything. And therefore I would suggest at this point of time, and with that I'll try to conclude, that online by itself will not suffice, and therefore it will be a mixed mode, it will be a blended mode, it will be whatever you can do, offline and online, everything put together. And therefore, if we have to re-question, and if we have to give a new name to all that we are going to do post-COVID, since post-COVID is our topic, I would probably call it flexible education. Leave all distance education, leave virtual education, leave online education or offline education behind. Call it flexible, because Chaturvedi Sahab himself has said education has to now go up to an age of 60, 65, 70, because it's a continuous learning which we require, and we need flexibility. Whether I'm in a job or whether I'm in consultation or I'm a teacher, I'll still acquire my degrees as and when I want. And even if I don't acquire a degree, I should be able to learn. And therefore, I would say the post-COVID, the feature would be a flexible education. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sancheti. Now, let me invite my friend, Dr. Atish Chattopadhyay, who is Vice Chancellor of Vijay Bhumi University and Director of IFIM B School, Bangalore.
Thank you, sir. And thank you so much. So, I would look at it a little differently, okay, because we talked about SDG 4, quality education and inclusiveness. And, Dr. Sandeep mentioned that we are now looking at when will COVID die. When Yudhishthir's 4 brothers died while drinking the water from the pond, and Yaksha asked few questions to Yudhishthir. One of the questions was, what constitutes an incurable disease? And Yudhishthir's answer was, very interestingly, covetousness is something that is incurable. I repeat the word covetousness. Now, when we look at COVID, whether COVID is the real disease or covetousness is the real disease, that actually we'll probably need to look at. And a lot of people feel that, this particular situation has created a very different kind of opportunity. Okay. Now, since we are talking about quality education, let me look at some of the figures. Now, if we look at India, 60% of the population is in the age group of 15 and 59, which needs, education, and particularly when we are talking about their, higher education and employability. Now, the GR, if we compare India with USA, India's GR is approximately 26%, and that of USA is around 86%. Now, it appears like a huge gap, 26% versus 86%. Now, if we look back and see what is the median or the average household debt in US, that is around $137,000 US. If we come to India, the debt per person is around 16,239 rupees. Now, 16,239 vis-a-vis 1,37,000 US. Why I say this? Because again, if you ask, Yaksha asked this question to Yudhishthir, who is happy? And Yudhishthir's answer was someone who is debt free. And we also know that if you look at the first case in New York happened on 1st March. First corona case reported in New York was on 1st March. And if we take that as a starting point, India had 100 cases on 15th March. And if you compare the two countries, there is a stark difference. Okay. Why I say this is, well, I was looking at which are the countries which has really done well during this crisis. And I think all of us probably agree that two countries we have reasonably done well. One is South Korea and another one is Germany. Now I was looking at how is the education different in South Korea and Germany. It is very interesting that Germany, 75% of the population is trained in vocational skills. They educated in vocational, they have got vocational training. In South Korea, that percentage is 96%. If we compare that with India, that is around 5%. So 5%, 75%, 96%. Now I was looking at some of the figures. If you look at the National Skill Development Council survey, only 0.5% of the plumbers in India are trained. There is a requirement as per their estimate is 12 lakhs and we have only 2.5 lakhs right now. During the COVID crisis, okay, the Skill India, the government could actually list only 900 certified plumbers all across the country who can provide essential services during this COVID crisis. Means we don't have enough trained carpenters or plumbers. Now we look at the National Food Security Association's, the figures in terms of training farmers for farming. And remember that 50% of our employment is generated in farming. The figure quoted in the parliament by the honorable minister for the year 2018-19 was 3.42 lakhs farmer being trained on farming practices. And we know the number of people who aspire to become engineers and appear for the JEE entrance exams. Now, I think this provides us an opportunity to relook at our education and particularly our higher education. The way we look at higher education needs to be probably, approached differently as things are going to be very different post this COVID. And one of the things, there are 4 things that came to my mind because all of us have actually now become comfortable with the online teaching, learning, exam. That has all happened. I'm not getting into that at all. I would say there are 4 key trends which are going to happen post-COVID. Number 1, education is going to facilitate, self-sustainability. So we would like to be self-sustainable as a country, as a city, and as a village. The way the migration of laborers happened, and every day there is a news. Today morning we wake up to a news. Okay, so the point is, I think we will be increasingly going towards self-reliance, and education will need to facilitate that. 2, education will become more accessible and affordable because of the online. Number 3, the faculty will be unshackled. The faculty needs to get affiliated with a university or a college. I think the faculty is going to be unshackled because individually a faculty can offer a course now sitting at the home, and anybody can pick up the course and we're going to allocate credit based on that, or anybody who wants to learn can learn. Which means the 4th end that is going to happen is Uberization of education. We have university only to give the degree by accepting the credits. Faculty can be anywhere and can deliver the course anywhere. So I think 4 trends. Number 1 is education actually facilitating self-sustainability. Number 2, creating accessibility and affordability. Number 3, unshackling of faculty. And number 4, Uberization of education. These are the key trends as I see post-COVID.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Atish. And now let me invite Mr. Harshvendra Swain, who is the Global Chief People Person and Marketing Head of Tech Mahindra, and he shall be giving the industry's perspective by his introductory remarks.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Kamal Singh and Dr. Chaturvedi and my esteemed panelists. It's been a real privilege to be here. I am going to give a context of an organization that is about 140,000 people around 98 countries and having about 80 nationalities. Clearly, gentlemen, after World War II, COVID has been and caused the biggest disruption in our lives. Across the world, we've seen that governments are struggling to strike a balance between life and livelihood. We see that again in India as we see all across. As per the UNESCO data, globally about 1.2 billion students are out of their classroom due to COVID-19. And that's what is the issue that stays with us. Very importantly, it's important to note that it has not impacted everybody equally. People in the lower income groups are struggling to survive. And obviously the children are facing a humongous challenge on, education and, for want of steady income. Even the middle income group is struggling because now they have to manage their jobs as well as manage their children, because today children are all at home. Children, and when I say children, I also mean adults, are experiencing a huge amount of screen fatigue, a huge amount of emotional fatigue. And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind. So today, parents and children and adults are all exhausted. Both the organizations like ours and education institutions like yours are looking at working models to actually cater to what I call the new normal. And I call this the big reset, because everybody has to reset in their mind on what the new age is going to happen. And the big reset in education sector will be on two accounts. One, on how we actually deliver the education, and some of you talked about online, but online is also various kinds. It's how we are doing it, or it could be on AR, VR, it could be on there are lots of technologies today to deliver that. And second, the whole curriculum. I think the curriculum will more be skill based rather than qualification based. The one good outcome of the current scenario, I can tell you, is suddenly you have digital transformation that's being pushed heavily, and the opportunity to have personalization in education today is huge. And may I request all the education institutions to recognize that today you can actually, with a blended approach, have more personalization in education. However, two factors post-COVID will determine the success. One is, of course, stable and affordable internet access. With 5G coming in, the internet access has to be stable and will be, but also has to be affordable. And second, of course, low cost of devices, because those are two very, very important things as we go forward. I clearly think the one big change, and I will close in the next 30 seconds, is education institutions will now have to focus on skill building rather than qualification building. Because when we hire in large numbers from education institutions, sometimes we see a clear difference where institutions have invested in skill rather than just qualification. And of course, there are many things that the government are doing, whether it's e-Pathshalas or public-private partnerships. My final take, gentlemen, is we are at an inflection point. And as we move towards the future, we face two paths. One that flips back to the old model of business as usual. And the second one, which leads to new models of education in the future. The question really is, will the governments and educators like yourselves who are really on the forefront, what will you adopt? And our request is to look at this whole changing scenario. And it's a great opportunity that I see to really adopt to the new ways of doing skill building in a much different way. Thank you, and over to you, Dr. Chaturvedi.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. You have given a very crisp perspective, which is the thoughts of or opinion of the industry, and we'll come once again for some questions. Let me now invite Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, who is heading the SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, which is a leading private B school of India. And before joining as the dean, he's the second dean, as I think, of SP Jain Institute. He has been working very actively in corporate training and consulting. So over to Dr. Ranjan Banerjee.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sandeep, Dr. Atish, Harsh. I think it was great to listen to you. I will try to be brief and talk about 3 or 4 perspectives, and I will look at more opportunities than challenges. I think the challenges have been well articulated. I think the first and most fundamental thing is that Indian higher education has fundamentally had elitism. And what do I mean by that? The best students, and the best students as measured by CAT scores, as measured by examination, as measured by selection, go to the best institutes, and the best institutes get the best teachers. Now, fundamentally, if I were to ask, do the weakest students need the best teachers, or do the strongest students need the best teachers? The answer to that is not obvious. So one of the big opportunities in this is that online at lower cost can make our best teachers, who are in a minority, available to the larger number of people who need quality. And this may actually accelerate that transition. So the transition to making the best teachers available to a larger number of people at a lower cost is an opportunity which can be enabled by a crisis like this, because otherwise we sit in the complacence of our brand name and our current institutes and our current way of working. So that to me is one opportunity. The second thing I would say is in terms of an institute, or as a leader of an institute, what should the leaders of institutes be doing today? I think there are 3 things. The first thing is your students. Your students today are insecure. They are sitting at home. They do not know what the future holds. There is stress. So we need to have empathy for our students. And for me, one of the things this has meant is I am going out and talking to students in groups of 6 in Google Hangouts and just having conversations, unconditional conversations, agenda-less conversations, where we listen to students and understand the world from their point of view. I believe this is important. The second is faculty. And faculty are also having to make a big adaptation. I think for the faculty member, what is needed is self-awareness. That the faculty needs to understand that the reason that a good teacher gets into teaching is they want to make a difference to the lives of students, and they derive pleasure from doing that. That does not change. However, the mode changes, and once you approach that with openness and self-awareness, you will realize that a lot of the things that seem like problems initially are not problems, they are opportunities disguised, and I will come to that again. The third thing is industry, and I believe that for too long, management institutes have had what I will call a transactional approach towards industry, where we go to industry saying, I want internships, I want placements, I have guest lectures, I have executive education, tell me what you want to purchase. Industry today is hurting. Today is the time for us to go to industry and say, what are your challenges? And how can we work together to find your challenges? Because the role of good higher education is to improve practice. We cannot improve practice if we do not understand practice in the first place. So I think we need to approach industry with a mindset of partnership and not with a mindset of transaction. So this is one set of things I want to talk about. Then I want to talk a little bit about, I heard about BC, DC, AC and NN, which is before Corona, during Corona, after Corona and new normal. And I will have 2 perspectives on this. The first perspective is if you look at industry practice, or if you look at societal practice in India, systems have been designed for efficiency. What does that mean? If I am going to make and sell 400 cars, I want to make 400 cars in the least possible time at good quality, at good costs. We have to move from systems designed for efficiency to systems designed for resilience. If you are saying that what is green, red and yellow today may not be green, red and yellow tomorrow, how do I flexibly configure my supply chain? Now, academia needs to reach out to industry. I don't believe there will be a complete normal where things will return to the way they were. There may be further lockdowns, Definitely a large number of companies are going to look at working from home for a significant proportion of their population, because that is something positive that they've realized. When I talk to technology companies, the norm seems to be 75% people can work from home. Now, this has threats and opportunities. If you assume that the 25% who are going to office have higher status, then nobody will want to work from home. How do you reconfigure organizations where working from home and working from office must have similar status? The second thing it does is that there is a huge possible opportunity, because the 9 to 5 workplace was probably invented by a man. When you have flexible hours and working from home, the entire qualified women workforce becomes accessible to industry as a potential talent pool. Now, what this implies for management institutions is the number of people you can educate, and the number, we talked about reskilling. I would agree with reskilling, but I would say something else. The skills that you require 4 years from now may not be the skills that you require today. So along with skills, one of the things we have to do is we have to teach people to learn. The ability to learn and unlearn becomes more critical than a specific skill. The ability to think, the ability to reflect, the ability to question. So I think the larger thing for the education system as a whole, and maybe society as a whole, we have to move from systems for efficiency to systems for resilience, because systems for resilience can manage uncertainty, can manage rapid change. Systems for efficiency do not know what to do when the environment changes dramatically. That's my message, and I'll leave it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we have completed this cycle, and now we are left with 15 minutes. And I will ask one question each to our co-panelists, and they have their own great communication abilities. So I will expect that they should reply in 1.5 minutes. I will try to ask the question within 30 seconds. My first question will be to the first speaker, Dr. Sandeep Sancheti. You have worked with several quality institutions of the country, including your tenure for 2 NITs as director. You have headed Manipal University campus at Jaipur, currently heading one of the biggest university of the country. Can you suggest 3 critical factors which make any institution a quality institution?
All of us are aspiring for what we call quality, whether we are in government or non-government institution. I think there is no denial that we are also relating quality with ranking, rating, etc., and so many other factors which are there. If I could distinguish between the government, because I've worked in both of them for a long time now, and I can say government has a beauty of what we call access, equity, and transparency. These are the 3 unique parameters government enjoys in general. If I say the same thing for the self-financed institutions, the private institutions, I would say they typically enjoy the 3 parameters which are very distinguishable, are speed, efficiency, and the diversity. And I believe speed, efficiency, and diversity are the ones which are going to drive what we call quality in a bigger way. Government has its responsibility, social responsibility, and therefore they are driving the other parameters. All in all, I would say Indian education is upwardly moving. But if I have to list 3 quality parameters which would be there, I think there are no secret, there are no special ones. The first and the foremost for me would be the quality faculty, which can enthuse the students or the people who are coming for higher studies, and therefore the faculty is the biggest thing, machinery of the education industry, if one can say so, and therefore they will be the first parameter. The second parameter obviously will be the students. If I give in the industry parlance, there will be the raw material, and once again the raw material has to be good, and therefore that will bring the quality in, and without doubt we are trying to do that. India has the quality of students as well. The third and the foremost parameter for me which will bring the quality will be the ecosystem, which I believe is missing in Indian context in many ways. We are doing good in something, we are not doing scaling, we are doing in theory courses but not in good in design, and various other aspects are not there. So overall ecosystem blended with research, teaching, skilling, practice, and everything has to be there. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have made my work easier. So now I will request Atish to follow Dr. Sancheti, and the question addressed to Atish is, group-based activities and extracurricular activities are very important component of quality higher education. How all these will be possible under post-COVID scenario and under online education?
See, just like what we are doing right now is the way the group activities will happen, which means that, for example, or what Ranjan mentioned, we are having these small group meetings in a platform called Teams. Okay. So group-based activities online will be happening. But at the same time, we will, since for some time, we will continue, with the social distancing, we will also require campus, but in groups. They may not come all together, but in groups they will come, do the lab work and go back. So we will have to manage our education system in a manner, probably lab will be open for extended period of time and the students in small groups will access that. Otherwise, it will happen the way we are doing it just now.
Thank you, Atish. Now my question, next question I am going to ask Mr. Harivansh Swain. The question is related to Industry 4.0. The question is, keeping in mind the big changes brought in by the Industry 4.0 in the industrial economy at global level, can you cite 3 suggestions which you would like to give to policymakers and academic leaders for reforms in Indian higher education?
Yeah, thank you. I'll finish my answer in the stipulated time, but I want to start by quoting Sidney Hayes. He said, the whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. I think that's what's important to recognize. The 3 suggestions that I would talk about, first is, of course, adopting technology in education delivery, increase in usage of information and communication in education, and especially with 5G coming in, what we never think is possible will be possible. You asked that question to Dr. Atish. I can tell you with 5G, everything is possible what you do in a physical environment. And it is amazing to see that all the curricular activities that he talked about would be now possible. The second thing I think is the government, industry and academia collaboration. I was very happy to hear what Dr. Ranjan Banerjee said. I think it's time for us to expand our horizons and to learn from each other, because it's a demand and supply, and I think it's important to understand, as I call them, the new to world skills. And there's a study that clearly says wherever, and this is a Gartner study, employees who have actually learned the new to world skills, their intake has increased from 34% to 43%. And the most important thing, gentlemen, is we need to shift from STEM to STEAM. You have to add an A, which basically means communication and arts and humanity. Whatever we do, in whatever field that we make, whether it's working engineers or whatever else field, I think the A is important, which means arts, which is very important, communication, extremely important in whatever we do, even if you're doing an engineer and if you're a psychologist designing customer experience, a dentist designing your smile, or a computer specialist creating special effects in the movies, the arts bit is very important. And I think that's something that I would encourage all the educationists on this esteemed panel to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soin. And now the last question is addressed to Dr. Ranjan Banerjee. He has talked about resilience and the question is related to it. The question is like this: due to disruptive technologies and COVID-19, skills and competency requirements of the industry will change very fastly during the next few years, say 5 years. Do you think that Indian higher education institutions are resilient and adaptive enough to deliver new industry requirements in a short possible time?
So, sir, I don't want to give a yes or no answer. If I can request a little bit more time, because I would like to comment on one or and then answer this question.
Take 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Okay, sir. So first quickly, Harsh, you will be glad to know that both liberal arts and design thinking are compulsory courses in our institute. So that is something that we've been kind of looking at. In terms of what, the question that was asked, I think one of the problems in terms of the new normal is that you talk to students and you tell them don't do something. This is like if I ask you don't think of objects with the letter Z, you will only think of objects with the letter Z. So you cannot make people change their habits without giving them alternative habits. So when students come back to campus, we have to find a way to create and engineer new habits. Otherwise, that part of it will not work. The question on higher education institutes, I think the answer is a number of higher education institutes are not prepared. To me, those educational institutes which are prepared are the ones which are willing to get rid of the silo mentality, engage with industry in a non-transactional way, to actually go out to industry and say that the value that we can create together is much larger than the value that we can create individually. And this requires a mindset change not only in academia, but in industry also. So I think both of us need to listen to each other, look at each other with respect. And I think the progressive institutes must lead the way. And we will find solutions. The second thing I would like to say is this whole business of is online less effective is a mindset issue. And maybe I'll just close with this. That supposing I gave you a scenario where the world had multiple viruses, therefore you could not have any classrooms. The only way to teach was the internet. And you had grown up in a world where all teaching was done in the internet. Suddenly in that world, and all teachers are only taught online, okay? Suddenly in that world, you had a miraculous wonder cure where all the viruses went away. The internet collapsed and you had to teach in the classroom. And you went to teachers and you said, what is the problem with teaching in the classroom? You would get 20 reasons why classroom teaching was not effective. So I think this is still at the early stage. You know, one of my faculty members, there's a marshmallow game which is played by 5 people physically. She has found out a way to use video to get that marshmallow game played by 6 people, where 5 people on video are coaching and 1 person is playing in the home. So the moment we move from why something cannot be done to how it can be done, human ingenuity will find the way. So that's it. I think that's the sum and substance.
Thank you. So
But I think
now the audience question and answer cycle starts. And I have been receiving a couple of questions. And these questions have been selected by the Secretariat of United Nations Global Compact Network. The first question I would like to address to Dr. Sandeep Sancheti. This is about the online education. And the question is, would there be a need for an online education policy in the coming years? How do we ensure inclusive education in a digital scenario? Dr. Vinod has asked this question.
Sir, yes, there is a dire need of policy. I think UGC and other statutory agencies have started working on that. To some extent, they have started giving some sort of a policy framework, maybe very staggered form of saying something in terms of what is MOOC and what is online and all that. However, I must take this opportunity to tell you, because I'm involved in one such initiative at UGC level where there is a National Academic Credit Bank is being discussed, and which is going to be a completely flexible setup, which is going to drive what we call online or offline or contact or non-contact. It is also going to drive a degree in less than the stipulated time or more than the stipulated time. It is also going to drive a course which can be coming from skilling or which can be from any theory or design. So all sorts of flexibility, as we call it, education 4.0, student centricity is going to be the core of that. And I'm aware that such a work is in a big progress, and therefore we should all be ready to embrace it, accept it. I'm sure many such policies will come from other agencies, including some of us will contribute to that. Without policy, such a large framework of education system in India cannot be governed. Some governance, some structure is required so that it doesn't go haywire. But we will have a lot more flexibility, and not only we as teachers or universities, students will have a highest degree of flexibility. In fact, I'll go to a statement saying that they will be able to tailor their degrees. And there is a provision which is going to come that if they choose courses which are very heterogeneous, not necessarily matching with entire management or engineering or medical or whatever, they may still end up getting a degree, what we call Bachelor of Liberal Education. So that will be the order of flexibility which we are seeing from the in times to come. That's my answer to him.
Thank you, Dr. Sancheti. And I have now a question which is about the opportunities thrown by COVID-19. The question has been asked by Mr. Shravan. The question is, while everyone is talking about difficulties and challenges, name one giant leap that COVID-19 crisis shall hand out to education sector. So this question is addressed to Dr. Atish.
Online, which was participated by 426 participants. Now, I think that was almost unthinkable, that drawing to be taught online and 426 people attending together. I think that is the biggest opportunity in terms of good faculty being accessible, and at the same time, anybody can be part of the cohort. So the cohort becomes diverse, 426 people together. And there were celebrities like Mallika Sarawai actually being part of the student body. So from an 8-year-old to celebrities, everybody was part of the student body being delivered, which is the most difficult thing. And the fact is this, that it happened. I think this is the biggest leap, that you are making education accessible and at the same time affordable. That's the key part. So good faculty to the remotest corner.
So Mr. Rao is asking a question which is addressed to the industry. It's a very generic question, but I would like to request Mr. Swain to give his opinion. Can the industry come up with some solutions regarding internships for students? I think Mr. Rao is asking about internship during these times.
So I'll actually first just add to what Dr. Atish said, because it's very relevant. The learning, the opportunity that COVID has got us is, can you imagine, or could you have imagined yourself sitting and doing such a webinar if COVID had not happened? That means the ability to adapt. And Satya Nadella quoted that there's 2 years of disruption that's happened in two months' time. I think that is the biggest. It's freed our minds, and it's time that we also free our mind on what education can bring. Freedom to students, where they don't have to commit suicides because of the pressure, but they have a chance to really explore their strengths in the way they want to. And I can tell you that that's very, very crucial. On internships, well, I've been a big proponent of the fact that we should have a huge input from both industry and academia to make education successful. I'll give you an example. We have gone from schools. In Tech Mahindra, I've gone to schools. We have partnered, we have collaboration with a few other schools where we've invited teachers to say, experience what's new. Similarly, we've gone and addressed the students. Similarly, for education and higher education, I think it is time that not only internships, for example, we have honored all our internships, and we are happy to give internships of all kinds and all technologies to anybody who's interested. But I think it's more than that. It's about how do you integrate a system where there is feedback from both sides, so that a student learns what is relevant and teachers know what is relevant. Because unfortunately, what's happening is what we are teaching today is going to be irrelevant by the time an engineer graduates. And that's a sad thing. And we'll have to look at and sense the new technologies on technology side. And therefore, I think the only answer is not only internship. I would say go a little further, and it's also the onus on industry. And I would probably say that we are at fault even more than the academia institutions, that we will have to reach out and say it's time we collaborated to make a better future for the country.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. Next question is about the students' involvement in curriculum framing, and I'm asking Dr. Sancheti. The question says that, should students be made part of the syllabus formation now that we are anyway moving away from the conventional form? The question is whether it will be possible to involve students in curriculum framing in future, which is not happening right now.
I would answer it this way by saying that it's already happening, sir. I'll not like to name the institutions individually here, but there are institutions where in the board of studies, in the faculty boards, and in the academic senate or its equivalent, students and their representatives are there. And not only the students, the past students in form of alumni are also there. Not only that, the industry experts are also there, like Harshji, people would be there, and we do have such people. And therefore, I would say that yes, their involvement is must because they are the key stakeholders in terms of drawing benefits out of that. We should not leave them alone. Now, I want to the extent of answering this question already previously by saying that suppose I'm studying in an X institution and X institution is not offering a course of my choice, or if it is offering the course of choice, but the contents are not what I like it, I can do it from Y institution, get my credit transferred to my institution, and that kind of a flexibility under the new framework or new statutory norms, it will be available. And therefore, a student may have to do just only 30, 40, 50% of the courses from where he or she is seeking the degree, if at all he is interested in degree. Very soon, probably we'll have Mr. Soin again after a few years with us, saying that no, I'm not bothered about a person's degree. This gentleman is good enough for me because he has taken those many good courses and he knows what I want from him. And therefore, I think the course content will be something which will be very easily governable, and the participation of the stakeholder is important. Last point on this, we should as teachers make it very modular. Let's say a course is divided into 10 modules and someone is interested only in 8 of them. Yes, he can do only 8 of them and take knowledge out of that. I think that is the kind of flexibility we should have for our students. That's my answer to the person who has put the questions.
Thank you, sir. There is a question which is related to the offering of the private elite institutions through remote teaching mode. As we know that Harvard shifted to online teaching in the month of March, and Professor Srikanth Datar has given a very good interview in which he has given details how 250 plus faculty members were trained within 15 days to rapidly shift towards online teaching. And they have a cohort of more than 1,000 students who are now pursuing management education from their respective places from around the world. And if Harvard has shifted to online teaching, then the question asked by Professor Manoj Pant, will the remote teaching make private elite institutions more accessible to the larger student community as an evening course option as a business model? Manoj Pant asked this question. Sorry.
Okay. So I think 2-3 points. I think it should, and I think it will. But I think what is true is that this will happen in sequence. I think there will be a time when students will be on campus, and at that with different rules. And I think the institute's first priority will be first getting back to a set of stable operations. But I think institutions have acquired the capability to innovate. I have also realized certain things about what is possible and what is not possible. And institutions which are reaching out to the market and in touch with the market and are flexible and fast should be able to come up with these innovations. I will also say one more thing. We've talked about 2 changes. One change we've talked about is the idea of more and more classes being offered online. But the second thing I would say is that if work from home becomes much more prevalent, you know, there was research some time back which said that if the proportion of working women in India is equal to the proportion of working men, India's GDP will grow significantly. I think there is a large untapped working pool which will be available, and that is a market which will need education, which will need support, but potentially can also drive economic growth in the future. As we truly realize the earning potential of a family as a whole, because of a patriarchal society, we are under-realizing the earning potential of the family. And the moment work from home becomes the norm, it becomes easier for women to work, because some of the constraints just go away. And I think that is a change whose potential we have not even begun to grasp in terms of the opportunity both for education as well as the opportunity for society.
Thank you.
Chaturvedi sir, can I add a small iota to it? My point would be the distinction between part-time and full-time. The distinction between evening and morning courses will all vanish in times to come. and one can make the degrees as and when they like, rather than just do it in 2 years or 3 years after enrollment. I think so the order of flexibility is going to be in the hands of the users themselves. And also, no distinction between government and private. Both will have the level playing field. Depending upon government goes up or private goes up, it will make the impact. I already made the statement what is the beauty of government and what is the beauty of private. That will decide who will go up.
Sir, can I ask one more question, Dr. Sandeep Chaturvedi? It is related to the formalization of draft new education policy. So for last 2 years, we have been waiting for new education policy comes into offing and it is implemented. So the question has been asked, what are the challenges now the new education policy can be affected due to the COVID-19 situation? So do you think that COVID-19 will prevent the implementation of new education policy, which has already been passed by the cabinet?
No, sir. Nothing would prevent us to do what we want to do. I think before this policy, proposed policy, I would say NEP by Dr. Kasturi Rangan and his team, there were many others which were Yashpal committee, or they were Hari Gautam committee, and there were various others. We don't know the reasons why it has not, or those were not implemented, though some of the factors remain common. We would not know in this case also when and how it will be implemented. But let's understand in India one thing, that the diversity or the scale or the non-linearities of operation always puts a simple task into a lot of complications. The simple task is to define a new goal and bring a new framework called new education policy. But do you know that after it was floated and made public in terms of seeking their opinion, we had more than 2 lakh opinions coming to the MHRD, and each 2 lakh opinions possibly would be covering number of pages and number of points. To accumulate them, to understand them, to implement them, to satisfy all of them, because it is a subject of state as well as center, and therefore there are challenges in that. But what I know, government is working on this, and what I deliberated with the name NSCB is just an integral element of that new education policy only. It is going to be one of the pillars for that, and therefore the work is in progress. Let's hope and let's accept that with minor tuning and tweaking, which is acceptable to us or not, the policy should come and we should accept it. And that's my wish also, and I'll also be working towards that, and wish all of you will also support that.
Thank you. Ms. Subhitra is asking a question to Dr. Atish. The question is, how equipped is our economy to support 4 trends mentioned by you, especially self-sustenance of skilled workforce and the requirement of technological infrastructure to help Uberization in this sector? Over to
First of all,
Dr.
thank you,
Atish.
Sumitra ji, for this question. See, this already started happening. Okay. If we look at it, some of the state boards have already approved the ITI diploma as equivalent to intermediate. That is the first thing that has happened. Now the universities need to really go out from the conventional thinking which has been happening so far, and probably engage with these kind of institutions where skills are being imparted. And what Dr. Sanchit said right now, so we can give credit transfer for a particular skill to a university, and the courses can be delivered, because the courses are now being delivered from a remote location. Exams we have conducted, all the exams we have conducted, proctored exams from home, our students have appeared. So exams are possible, course delivery is possible. So I think the fact that skill becomes more important than qualification. Now skill and qualification both will come together. So skill and qualification will get married. Education will become more inclusive. Only thing we have to go that extra distance, and it will actually be in alignment with the SDG 4, which is inclusiveness, and it should be married with skill building. Otherwise, organized sector, the industry hardly creates any employment in India. We have to create entrepreneurs and self-employed professionals. A carpenter, a plumber, an electrician should be treated as a professional. That is where we will move.
Thank you.
And it is possible.
Thank you. My next question is addressed to Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, and it is about the autonomy and accountability which is lacking in Indian higher education system for long. And the draft new education policy has suggested some of the remedies, and the government has taken few steps which are not enough. The question is, for providing quality higher education, we need to facilitate innovation, imagination, and experimentation at all levels in our system. Do you think that the Indian universities and colleges are mostly suffering in this respect due to lack of autonomy and accountability?
You know,
We are not
I'm
talking
not
about your
sure
institution.
how big.
We are not talking about your
No, no, I
institution.
understand.
It's a
I
general question.
understand. Yeah, I understand it's a general question, but I think the single largest issue, if you were looking at higher education, is how do you get the right quality of teachers into institutes? That is a function of many things. It is a function of autonomy, but largely it is a function of how do you build the right incentives, how do you build the right environment. And one of the things I will say there in higher education is perhaps to get the right quality of teachers, one of the things we need to relook at today is the PhD degree really compulsory for teaching? And the balance between the need for the PhD degree and let's say work experience in terms of the kind of faculty one has in many aspects of higher education. Particularly if you're looking at skills, what is the profile of the new teachers we would need? How do we need to prepare those teachers? I think that level of autonomy, for instance, if I were a starting business school today, I would like to have a mix of PhDs and I would have to have many working executives in my institute teaching. Now, do I have the autonomy to do that? So I think those are some of the areas where if policy is supporting, then it is scope for innovation. I think the other thing that we all have a responsibility to do is large investments in teacher training. I think there are many teachers who have the will, but they do not get the same quality of exposure. So if you have large investments in teacher training, then that can be a second thing. One of the bigger things I worry about in this is that one of the larger issues is that you have a number of teachers who are not proud to be teachers. And that to me is a fundamental problem because to me teaching is a privilege. And unless you have a critical mass of teachers who see teaching as a privilege, how will we provide quality in higher education?
Thank you,
Can I
Dr.
add one point here, sir, with your permission?
Please.
So when I said that this whole teacher issue, I think in order teachers will be there. For example, I'm just taking an example. A good marketing professor like Singhvi will be there offering his marketing course, which will be like as per the credits requirement. Institutions will accept the credit of all those who have actually attended the course. So teachers will be free, just like the Uber drivers, and institutions will be accepting credit from the courses offered by the such teachers. So employment per se, the way we see teacher being employed will not be there. So that will solve the quality teacher issue. Of course, there is no substitute to teacher training, but I think more and more accessibility will be happening because of this.
So we are left with 15 minutes time, and I would like to use it very efficiently. But Dr. Sancheti wants to say something.
Yeah, a quick shot on the 2 points, one teachers and one autonomy. Just my take on that. Number one, we need more teachers who are teachers by choice and not by chance. I've been saying this statement from my side for a long time. A lot of people rejected from various other sectors end up in teaching saying अब तो हम पढ़ाई लेते हैं या स्कूल में या कॉलेज में नौकरी कर लेते हैं. So we want more teachers by choice, and the society, industry or government, all of us have to work for that. The take on autonomy, I think we all crave for autonomy, we all like autonomy, and we all keep saying collectively someone has to give us an autonomy. If someone has to keep delivering you what you call autonomy, then you are obviously a dependent person. Autonomy can never be given. My take is autonomy has to be taken by us. And some of us as teachers and the leaders of the academic institutions have never understood this concept, and therefore will always keep seeking for small things called autonomy. Autonomy should be understood and taken by itself, by us. These are my takes on these 2 points.
Okay, so three contexts. One, I was listening to Dr. Ranjan. one of the points Ranjan you made was on gig working. Let me tell you, the good news is in companies like ours, there is a huge amount of gig working that's already happening. Not only part-time working, but because of the advent of blockchain, I can pay people for the number of hours and minutes they work. They don't even have to come for the full day. They don't have to come for part of the day, even a few hours in a month. That's a reality today, and there are large numbers. Second, I think vocational training, I would urge all institutions to think about. My blockchain head, the global blockchain head, has no formal education in blockchain. And he is managing one of the toughest and the most exciting technologies. And the third thing that I think we need to really get into India, and I'll give you a practical example. My daughter studies in the University of Waterloo. She's doing mathematics and economics. And one day I looked at her, she was studying psychology. And I said, where is this coming from? She said, I just decided that I will take one course of psychology which will make me a better professional. Flexibility. And if we, I mean, why, when we talk about curriculums, why have set curriculums? Why can't we think of a curriculum which people can choose and give some core, but have some flexibility for people? The more we sort of put people into boxes, the more we will lack innovation and creativity. So my request to all of you would be, maybe think about how we can get, if we happen to be a nation that's ahead of others, innovation and creativity will be two key aspects. And I think that's something that I will urge all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. So at the end, I would like to invite my fellow panelists or give their final comments in 2 minutes and in the form of suggestions. What kind of 3 suggestions they would like to give to the policymakers, Ministry of HRD, and the academic community, which they also belong and I also belong, that how to meet the challenges of COVID-19 and reap the opportunities thrown by it. So 3 quick, very brief sessions. Time limit is 2 minutes. Here we start with the first speaker, Dr. Sandeep Sancheti.
Okay, it's a very broad spectrum. Choosing 3 would be difficult. I would say number 1, that the teaching should take back seat and the learning should take the front seat. So students should be more learner-centric, or our effort should be 30-70, which was probably 50-50 or 100-0 till now, should be 70 for learning and 30 for teaching. Number 2, teachers themselves should learn along with the students all the time. They cannot be foolproof in their knowledge at any stage of time. Technology will come and challenge, so teachers should also learn. And the third take would be that to make the learning, as I said, first 2 concepts were completely changed. The same would be the change in the other thing. The teaching, learning, whatever it is, should be completely flipped, even in the case of labs. We have heard of flipped classrooms for theory, but we should now work on the flipped classrooms approach for even practicals with the virtual labs, and even the flipped approach even for the examination. So the third answer would be a flipped approach to everything called education.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Atish, your concluding remarks, giving 3 sessions.
Okay, my first suggestion is that synchronized online learning should be equivalent to classroom learning. That is first suggestion. Number 2 is that we need to go out of this faculty-student ratio. Faculty should be allowed to be sourced from anywhere. I can get the best faculty from US, Europe, Australia, anywhere. That's the number 2. Number 3, once the universities or institutions should be allowed to take credits on account of skills, and the curriculum should be allowed to be made bespoke, which means you can choose and accumulate credits from anywhere and can curate your own curriculum. These are the flexibilities. These are the regulator should allow us.
Thank you, Atish. Next, I would request Mr. Soin, how and what kind of 3 sessions you would like to give to Minister of HRD, Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank.
So I'll be very candid. My three suggestions apart from the others would be A, we need to make progress in freeing the system from too many regulations. That's number one, the education. Two, I think we should move from providing reskilling as a nation to enabling lifelong learning. And even the education institutions have to help in providing lifelong learning. And finally, I would say we have to move from negative reservations to a positive support to the disadvantaged. And it's a big difference between the two. And that's my request to the HRD Minister.
Thank you. So now next, I will request and invite my friend, Dr. Ranjan Banerjee.
So thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi, for your patient and timely moderation. I just talk about three things. I think the education system has too many silos. We have silos within institutes, we have silos across institutes, and we have silos between institutes and academia. So the first level is let's remove the silos. First within our institute, then let's have more inter-institute collaboration. Some of the things that Atesh is talking about are to come true. First of all, we have to get some of these silos in our minds and open up education and allow for more collaboration between institutes. The second is we have to approach industry, and industry has to approach us with a very different mindset. So the first my thing is break down silos, create new ways of collaboration to create great value. So that's the first. The second, there is an old cliche I heard, people love to learn but hate to be taught. We must move the focus from the teaching experience to the learning experience. And the learning experience means understanding what somebody is going through when they are in a family, they are taking care of a child, they are taking care of the elderly and taking classes at the same time. So building empathy and building teaching for that environment is a skill, and we need to start thinking around
Dr. Banerjee, you are not audible. Right now it is 6:25 p.m. Friends, this webinar has been organized by United Nations Global Compact Network India in partnership with BIMTECH, Grenada. Let me request Mr. Kamal Singh to extend the vote of thanks to the panelists as well as to the very intelligent audience.
So, Dr. Chaturvedi, first of all, thank you so much for first having agreed to anchor it and so beautifully. And you could see with so many questions coming from the audience is one indication that how much the engagement of both the industry and the academic expert with the audience was. And I have got my own feedback from my colleagues here that this session has really achieved what we wanted to. So I want to really thank each one of you, especially the panelists, both from industry and academia. You have been really outstanding, and your insight was so useful that going forward, this webinar will not be only one in the series, and we would like to take this forward more with all of you, going forward a continuous conversation, and that conversation will help us to build partnership for achieving these goals, and especially the goal number 4. We would like to figure out some of the important subject of the quality education going forward, and I would like to also urge each one of you to give us some insight, some topics where we will bring industry and also the academia together, and sometime we will also reach out to the regulator. The regulator, policy maker will also bring, because we have the reach, and we will together prepare a blueprint which will be useful not only to your organizations, not only to the participants who are part of the webinar, but also the community as a whole, we benefit. So thank you so much, each of the panelists. I am not naming individually because we know how much your affection has been with me for all these years. So thank you so much. And finally, to all our audience, my team, Asim and Sriya tells me that registration of over 750 was one indication that how the people were looking forward to this webinar. And I also had a very quick update on how many were really attending. So I was told around 5:30 it was over 400. I don't know, after that I don't have the score. So it also shows that how your conversation was so engaging with the audience, because normally a webinar like this has a challenge and people come and join and leave. but for you, it is one more compliment. And at UNGC India, we promise you that to debate and discuss all important issues. And to me, quality education is one of the very, very fundamental and important goal if India has to really move to the next level of growth. Without quality education, we cannot achieve until we make it equitable, inclusive, and responsible management education. So that is where my take is at UNGCNI, and I would like to seek your partnership, your engagement in building that actionable agenda, and I'm sure you will volunteer as you have been always. So thank you once again, and thank you to also to organizing team that they have done a very good job, no interruption, everything went seamless, and very good job done. And finally, Dr. Chaturvedi anchor, my salute to you. So thank you so much. You have always brought always new kind of inspiring, motivating, and engaging leadership. Co-shared leadership. This is what today it has been proven. So thank you so much. I would have done so much, but today time does not permit, and we will again talk to each one of you and build the partnership for taking India to the next level of growth. Thank you so much.
So this is 6:30 and we have kept our promise with Mr. Soin. He has to join another meeting at 6:30. Thank you, Mr. Soin.
Thank you.
My fellow
Thank you,
panelists.
Mr. Soin. Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi.